Hi, and good evening. My name is Deanne Battle, and this is the Composite, a fledgling talk show. So, thank you for anyone who's able to join me this evening for our 11th episode of season 1. But if you're not joining me live, if you're watching it later, thank you for that as well. All right. So we had another one episode earlier this week, and now I'm closing out the week on Friday. So working on that consistency that I've spoken to those who've been following up or following along, have that I've been the consistency I've been talking about, Now, a couple of things before I get started into the topical elements here. If you hear that is the dog. She made an appearance last episode. She is a large pups. She makes her presence known. And so that's what you're hearing right now, especially when I'm on live. So who knew? So if I didn't do this show, I wouldn't know that my dog wanted to be a star. All right. Okay, that's what I get for talking about you. Now you're here. Okay. Why don't you just come say hello? Let's just get it over with. This is Xena. Oh, Xena. Yeah, there she goes. Okay, pop back down. Thank you, sweetie. All right, yeah, I love you too. Okay, so that's the first noise that you'll hear. Secondly, oh, hi. Welcome. The second note, right? So dog panting, you might hear that in the background. The second note is they've started the fireworks. It's June 30th and they've started them. And so I sent out a notice saying I was going to do the show tonight. And then about 15 minutes later, it was like pop, 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 pop. So at this point, it's more intermittent. Can't say that today, but it's more sporadic. But you might hear that. So a couple of things I don't have control over at the moment. When I can afford a studio, right? That's when the shit will really be on point. Okay, so thank you for joining me. So tonight's topics, I did a little bit more industrious note keeping. So I want to talk about a personal incident that I witnessed yesterday, and then I want to tie it into the Supreme Court, then moving into a quick Ron DeSantis detour, and then moving on to a couple of folks on social media that I follow, that I'm aware of, that I wanted to share with you all if you're not following them already. The last couple of episodes, I did some TV/movie reviews, so I thought, why not, share what I'm, consuming in terms of social media, although I need to reduce my intake a bit. And then we'll wrap up talking about Jonathan Majors and that whole situation. Because that's evolving, and my thoughts on it are evolving, so I thought I would share that. Okay, so the first thing would be why I am hesitant to leave my house, right? So I'm teaching this summer, and I'm commuting a solid hour at least each way now. Driving through Philly is no joke. And I'm from, Queens and Brooklyn, but yeah, driving through Philly is no joke. Your options are pretty limited to I-95, which is, I think they just finished repairing it. So that's somewhat helpful. And I-76, pretty much anywhere that I want to go. And those just are always backed up, and it's a holiday weekend. So it's been particularly bad. So why don't I want to leave my house? Partially because of the way people drive, right? And I think I've said this on another broadcast, like nobody wants to let you over, especially in Philly. Like in New York, people are gruff about it and they'll honk and stuff or whatever. But the hostility, it's huge. It's just like, well, damn, can I get over? Right? Like, there's plenty of space. I'm not like trying to cut you off or anything, but you speed up to cut me off. So I can't get over. So there's that frustration. Or just the general fuck shit, for lack of a better word, that people are doing on the roads. So I wanted to return some library books that I actually have not even had a chance to read yet, because I've been so busy. But I went to the library, go upstairs and return them. And now the neighborhood that I live in, the library is connected to the municipal building, right? So you have, the water, different utilities. You can get papers notarized and everything. It's all in one big, massive building. And so I returned my books. I was in the library for all of 5 minutes. As I'm coming out, I'm on the second floor, and there are these two gentlemen who were having a really loud conversation when I walked in, and I noticed them. Two older white gentlemen, I think like probably mid to maybe late 60s, but they were like speaking really loudly, really emphatically. One was talking about his uncle was a Vietnam vet or something like that or whatever. And all of a sudden, when I'm on the second floor, I hear from the first floor, "Yeah, you want to come arrest me? You want to come shoot me? Come do it. Come do it. Come take me out. Come take me out," or something like that. And the guy's just yelling at the top of his lungs. So I just stood in front of the library because I was like, I'm not trying to go down there to that. But so he's screaming. He goes outside. He slams the door. And so the librarians inside come over to me and they're like, "Well, did you see what was happening? What was going on?" I said, "Listen, I don't know." I said, "There were two guys downstairs. They were speaking loudly. Seems like they got into an argument, whatever." So then the library security comes over. But here's the thing, because it's connected to the, municipal building, the cops came out locked and loaded, folks. And these were not like ordinary beat cops. They were dressed like SWAT, and so there were 4 cops, one security officer from the library. And so they're just talking to him and they're like, "Okay, buddy, like what's going on and stuff." And, he had a completely different tone. He was very conciliatory. He was like, "Oh, well, oh, my grandfather was a police officer," or something like that. And And he had calmed down a lot. But as I was, I had to walk around them, right? Because they're right in front of the door. I had to walk around this whole situation. And as I'm walking around, a sheriff's like Lincoln Navigator size vehicle pulls up with 3 more cops in it. So there are 3 cops on the scene, 1 security officer, and then 3 more cops come. And I was just thinking to myself, does this guy know that he almost died? That he might still die if he doesn't get it together? Because, they were radioing each other. They were like, yep. Yeah, Bill. Yeah, we're out here with him. No. Okay. All right, bye. I'm only hearing part of the conversation, but while one of them was on the walkie, he's one hand on the walkie and the other hand on his hip. They were gonna take that guy out if he didn't get his shit together. So I don't know if he was having a mental health breakdown, or if he was just, having an argument and it got carried away. But it's just, I don't think people, he probably, knew he was safe. But I guess for me, I was just surprised that, even though he was older and white, that their body language, they weren't, nasty to him, and they didn't physically accost him. At least when I was there, they didn't. But just the fact that they still displayed that militarized, I will shoot you in the head and not think twice about it, vibe. And, for me, I felt like I was identifying that, and dude just kept talking, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Good luck, buddy." But the reason I bring that up is, it's shit like this where it's I'm literally just trying to leave my job to go to the library to return books. And it's you can't even do the simplest thing without worrying about an incident, And so that's life in America. But then at the same time, I'm you know what? People sometimes are terrible, and sometimes I want to stay in the house. Cormac McCarthy passed away last week or possibly 2 weeks ago. It was very recent. And I enjoy his work, but, one thing I always tell my friends that I talk to about books, is that, I'm like, well, if he hates people so much, like, why even write about them? Just due to the nihilistic nature of majority of his work. But I'm just at a point now where I'm like, well, shit, maybe he was right, because I desire community and I desire connection, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show. But the real thing in person, yeah, people in 3D at this point is like, you don't know what you're getting. Everyone is so volatile. Now, why are they volatile? Let's switch over to the Supreme Court, shall we? We've got a myriad number of dumpster fire decisions here. And how do I relate this? Ooh, okay, sorry, I clicked the wrong link. Have my article set up, though, so we'll have a little bit of, ancillary materials. So I connected to the Supreme Court, right, as the judicial branch of our government. And I think there are so many elements of our society, whether it's at the executive level, the legislative level, the judicial level, local municipal level, in the private sector, jobs, in education. Stick a pin in that. I'll come back to that. There's so many things that are failing us that I really think that nihilism, right, in terms of the civil contract, right, I think that's contributing to the volatility that people are expressing. I think it's, contributing to a lot of mental health crises. And I couldn't help but, kind of think of that guy and other people and things that I've seen that have been off this week. It's just really, we're being pressurized at this particular time. And I don't think it's going to be a quiet summer, unfortunately. I think that it's going to be, a volatile summer. All right. Pardon me. So the affirmative action ruling. So here's the thing. I'm sure there have been plenty of videos in terms of what people have done on this topic. But I want to maybe talk about things a little differently here. Hold on a sec. Okay, so this is me on, yeah, that doesn't look as good. Let me maybe make it less bright. Okay. So this is the AP, right? And, I bring in an article again, as I always say. I do not like to talk out of my ass. I like to be at least somewhat informed. Okay, so I've, on these hour-long commutes that I've had, I've been listening to the news, I've been listening to commentary, but I wanted to get some text, right? So their decision, right, was essentially to say, right, that, okay, let me get that article. All right. Race cannot be a factor in forcing institutions of higher education to look for new ways to achieve diverse student bodies. Right? Okay, so let's stop there for a second, because race has always been a factor. Race has been a factor in the founding of this country. So if you don't have an affirmative action policy, and let's say you have a small college, right? And, it's like, okay, let's say worst case scenario, for those that support affirmative action, the school goes from, let's say, having, oh, now I'm doing free ads. Okay. So let's say the school goes from having, like let's say a 20% person of color population to like, okay, now it's like down to 2% or 0. And it's an all white school. So that's a racialized situation. I hope I'm making sense, because I think that the language people use around affirmative action, it presupposes that race only comes into the fray when a Black person or an Asian American person or a Native American person or a Latino person, so on and so forth, come onto the scene. And it's like, no, this is a really diverse country, right? And if you're today in 2023, if you have all white situations, like all white communities, all white schools, all white colleges, so on and so forth, that's a racialized situation, right? So it's like race cannot be a factor, so on and so forth. Like race is always a factor. So that's just the initial language is just misleading. I mean, when I was hearing, again, I didn't read it, but I was hearing it in the car, how the ruling, was framed. And I'm like, but race is always an issue. You can't have in a country this, like, again, in the country this diverse, like, you don't have all white situations unless they're curated to be that way, right? Unless there are policies and systemic things that are impeding other folks from being in that space. So that's just something to consider. Okay. Another thing about this, and then we'll move on to some of their other wonderful decisions this week. They don't have it in this article. Okay. No, they do. Now, so I'm not trying to pick on her, but Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, right? It says Jackson, who sat out the Harvard case because she had been a member of an advisory governing board, wrote, quote, with the let them eat cake obliviousness today, the majority pulls the ripcord and announces color blindness for all by legal fiat. But determining race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. So yes, I essentially agree with what she said. But when I heard this on the radio, I was like, sis, really? You recused yourself? How, Sway? Like, no. It's just, here's the thing. Like, so we already know in terms of the way the Supreme Court is set up, right, that it's stacked to a more conservative bent, a more conservative element. Now, we know at least 2 of those justices are corrupt, right? Let's just call it what it is. Alito and Thomas are getting flued out, okay? These donors, these friends are, buying them vacations. I think, what's his name? Harlan. Hold on a second. Let me look up his last name. Harlan Crow, right? Oh my goodness, he sounds like an Austin Powers villain. Harlan Crow, he's out here, he bought Clarence Thomas's mom's house. He gave the wife, Ginny Thomas, a job and stuff like that. So, and these jabronis are not recusing themselves from anything. But like one of the most important cases that you all are going to look at, you're going to recuse yourself? Here's the thing about this. And I hate to say it, but I'm just at a point now where I can't get excited when I see a black face in a position of power. I mean, personally, and, just looking at the country, because it's just like, they're still operating, the same way that you would expect, frankly, any white person to operate. Like, in the sense of, there's not going to be any separate consideration for the fact of the matter. Now, let me clarify that. Sorry, it's Friday. I'm tired. So it's not that I'm saying she shouldn't have recused herself because she's black. What I'm saying is, it feels like a little bit of an out, right? Because she now doesn't have to pick a side. She can just kind of give her opinion from the sidelines, but she didn't actually have to have a dog in the fight because she didn't say yay or nay. And I don't like that. I don't like that, right? It's not the same thing, but one of the reasons I had issues with Obama when he first ran for president was his voting record as a senator. Like, how many times did you miss a vote, or you just voted present and things like that? I'm not a lukewarm person, and politically or personally, for those that know me. And so to see that wishy-washiness, it's just kind of like, I can't get excited about that, because that just leads to more of the same. Now, part of her reasoning might be that she thought, okay, well, we're not going to win it anyway, so maybe my vote doesn't count as much. But it would have given me a little bit of solace to know that someone who is like me took it upon herself to go on the record about this issue. So it's just like, I don't really want to hear a comment afterward. Excuse me, And then, a lot of people will say, well, if you don't recuse yourself, excuse me, very indelicate, sorry. The air quality is terrible. Yes, because she went to Harvard, yes. Okay, really great points here. Yes, and I understand, yes, she has an association with Harvard, but I guess what I'm saying is, I don't understand why the left or liberals or whatever you want to call it, why we're always fighting with one hand behind our backs, and the right is always fighting with both hands in front of them. They've got a knife, they've got a gun, they've got a guy in the back who's about to come out in 5 minutes. And it just seems like we do everything on the left to disable ourselves, to fight fascism, white supremacy, and the scourges of unchecked capitalism. And it's just, I'm just frustrated by that. Now, that's in terms of the decision itself, and then I'm going to move on from that in a little bit. In terms of content, I guess I'm somewhat concerned, but to be honest, I don't think affirmative action has been as fruitful for my community, I'm just speaking for myself, as it was initially intended to be. And so I think the outcome of this will be detrimental, but I don't think it's going to do what people are assuming that it's going to do. And by that, I mean, it's like, oh, okay, now we can get rid of all the blacks. No, I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think a lot of other groups are going to absorb the outcome of this. And so maybe then the narrative around affirmative action and what it was actually doing, and who it was actually benefiting, maybe that will change. That's the only minor positive that I can see here. But I overall think it's setting the stage to, wind us back to Jim Crow. I mean, what else do you want to do with a ruling like that? I don't see anybody attacking legacies. These colleges, all of them, universities, at least a third legacies. And that's being generous. Like, it's like, so you only have, so if you have, let's say, 100 students, right? I'm going to make the math easy for myself. 100 incoming first year students. So 33 to 35 of them at least are going to be legacies. So that means in that incoming class, you had less than 70 spots, basically. But no one's talking about that as an unfair advantage, right? Because the language around affirmative action is like, oh, it's not merit-based. So what the fuck about being a legacy is merit-based? You had nothing to do with the sperm and the egg that created you. Just a thought. Okay. Yep. Yeah. The legacy thing is definitely a money grab. Thank you. So the next ruling here, student loan forgiveness. Yeah. I mean, we knew that shit wasn't going to happen. I stopped hoping for that because I remember like when they first said, oh, the $10,000 and then, if you got X amount in Pell Grants in undergrad, it was going to be like 20,000 off the rip, right? Which for me, I mean, I'm still going to be paying student loans until after I die. I'm under the bus. It's like I chose to study things that don't make money. I'm in a profession that doesn't make money. So that's a wrap. I always joke with my family that like, when you come around my grave and you see my headstone, there'll be like a little bony hand with like a check going up to the student loan people. But nevertheless, I got super excited because I was like, 20 grand is not that much, but it's something to be a little hopeful for. I actually got on the White House Education Initiative newsletter. So I was like, yes, I will be updated. And it's just like, and they sent me an update today. And child, I haven't even opened it yet. I don't think I want to read this. Okay, it is called, I'll show it to you. It's the White House Initiative on Advancing Educational Equity, Excellence, Economic Opportunity for Black Americans, right? So I just signed up for all of their newsletters because I was like, I need to know when this money's going to hit, right? And so this is a statement from Secretary Cardona, and he says, today, the Supreme Court ruled against students and families across the country. It's an outrage that lawsuits brought on by Republican elected officials have blocked critical student debt relief that would have been a lifeline for more than 40 million Americans, nearly 90% of whom make less than $75,000 a year, moi included. We will never stop fighting for borrowers, blah, blah, blah. Again, I feel like on the left-hand side, we fight with one hand behind our backs, right? A friend and I were texting about this earlier, and I said to her, it's so interesting to me that the narrative around the student loan situation is, oh, that's never going to pass. People owe too much money. Like, the government needs to be repaid. No one ever asked how we were paying for those Trump tax cuts. Never. So anytime it's something for the populace, oh, we just don't know how we're going to make that happen. Nope. Not going to do it, right? Or nope, can't do executive order around this. Sorry. But anytime it's something for a rich person or a corporation, bipartisan agreement, right? So I feel like this is a similar situation. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to overstate, right, the power of the executive, because we still have two other branches of government. But I can't help but wonder if this was, right, as opposed to, debt forgiveness for students, if it was debt forgiveness for the actual colleges and universities, if that would have gone through. I think it would have. Okay, so this decision was a 6-3, right? You know who's mighty, mighty quiet? Kagan, right? Is it Elena Kagan? Yeah. You'll never hear from her. What is she up to? I just feel like, because she's white, she gets to be invisible, right? So I'm looking for Ketanji Brown Jackson to do something, say something. And I'm sure that there are folks in the Latinx community that are looking for Sonia Sotomayor, do something, say something. But Elena Kagan is up in the cut, So that's just something that I thought about. And I'm not saying she hasn't made a comment on any of these decisions, but none of these articles and none of the news coverage that I've been listening to has quoted her at all. So the court sided with 6 conservative-leaning states: Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and South Carolina that objected to Biden's student loan forgiveness. It's a ruling dealt a blow to the 26 million borrowers who applied for relief after Biden announced the plan in August of 2022 and represented a political setback for Biden. So here's my thing about the Biden connection. Because I think some folks, I know my dad sometimes thinks I give him a hard time. But my whole thing is this. It's part of what you ran on, right? So if you had if you had any inkling oh, damn, I'm most likely not going to be able to do this, how about not making that a cornerstone of your fucking platform? Just a thought. Because it's just he's one person in the executive branch, right? And we have checks and balances. Understood. But when you say, oh, this election is going to be between life and death, and we can't let Trump get in there, and it has to be Biden, and Grandpa Biden is going to come in and he's going to fix it, and whatever. I'm not saying I believe that per se, but I want to feel like this is not just me voting for another Democrat who doesn't have any of my interests at heart. I'm a lifelong independent, so I'm not registered in any party. I would say I'm most closely affiliated with the Working Families Party. I tended to vote, not completely down ballot, but I tended to vote, very much on that ticket when I lived in New York. I wish other states had a Working Families Party. But nevertheless, I'm I'm going to hold my nose and vote for this guy, right? Because I don't want Trump. I don't want, right? And then it's everything. It's oh, well, Republicans won't let me do this. And then Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema won't vote with the Democrats. And, the Supreme Court, they shot down the student loans. And it's just kind of really, sir? So, and people have made this joke. Even Charlemagne the God made this joke that Joe Manchin is the shadow president. It just, at a certain point, it's don't promise us anything. Just say, listen, vote for me because the other dude is a dick. I mean, that's essentially what you're really running on, right? You're not running on actually making our lives better as Americans. And I say this as someone who, I don't just vote federally, I vote in local elections as well, right? The only time I won't vote is have been a couple of times because I've moved a lot as an adult. If I just moved to an area and I don't know anything about like what the local issues are and what's going on, there have been a couple of times where I've skipped just because I'm like, I just got here. I don't feel comfortable voting on, you know, bill number 12 or whatever and things like that. And it's just like, I have no clue what the hell's going on. But yes, I do vote locally. So I take voting seriously. The first things that I do when I move someplace is I register to vote and I get my library card. So I take both of those things that I'm talking about right now. I take them very seriously. But yeah, the student loan thing is a cluster. And so, I already reached out earlier this month because I knew I wasn't going to, I'm going to have a problem in the fall, because it's just like, unless I can get the payments down to something reasonable, it's not going to be good. And I know I'm not the only person that's going to go through that. So I just wonder, it's like, okay, if you won't give a regular average American any financial relief, it's going to hit the economy. So like, what are you going to do when there are 26 millions of us, and I'm exaggerating, because there are people who will get a second and third job and stuff like that. I'm not doing that shit. I ain't got it. How about that? So if the one job I have, if I can't afford it, I can't afford it. You need to garnish, I guess you're garnishing. It's just like, how far can you push people? So if there's not any type of economic relief that comes through, then it's going to hit the economy. I mean, it's already hitting the economy, but I think it will become more overt, in the fall, because I think it's, September 1st? I actually need to pay more attention to that, in terms of when repayment begins again. And I'm not saying that I don't owe the money. I do owe the money. But, can you invest in teachers? Can you pay us something where, it's not like a third of my paycheck to pay back my loans and I can still afford to live and maybe have a family and maybe have a home? It's just salaries do not keep up with these expenses. But then if you don't educate yourself, then you're the bum. Right? Like, that's how society treats you. Like, oh, well, I know you come from disadvantaged people, but if you lift yourself up by your bootstraps, if you educate yourself, it's just like, yeah, but to educate yourself costs money, right? So then you take out the loan, with the idea that in addition to enriching my mind, that, there would be some level of security there. And I don't want to overstate it. I am better off than many people, but I should be a little better off than I am right now. But that's neither here nor there. So let's have a look at this last decision that they turned in, which is, I don't know what to tell you about this one either. All right, I'll show you the screen again. From NPR. In a major decision affecting LGBTQ plus, right? Sorry, that's why I was having trouble reading it. Writes, the United States Supreme Court on Friday carved out a significant exception to public accommodations laws that in most states bar discrimination based on sexual orientation. By a 6-3 vote, the court sided with Lori Smith, a Colorado web designer who is opposed to same-sex marriage. She challenged the state's public accommodation law, claiming that by requiring her to serve everyone equally, The state was unconstitutionally enlisting her in creating a message she opposes. So look at the language, and this is just in the article here. So she doesn't want to serve everyone equally. So you check that out, right? So she don't want to serve everyone equally. But affirmative action is inequitable. Okay. This is the same group of people making this decision. So what is it based on? So institutions. I'm just trying to see like where the equality, so that word's being thrown around, where is it important and where is it not? Right? So as an individual, I don't have to like serve everyone equally. And then as an institution, you don't need to serve everyone equally. Okay? But liberty and justice for all. Okay. You know, I'm just kind of talking through this on the fly. I'm trying to see what the logic is here, other than just, you know, ensuring we have 0 civil rights in addition to 0 reproductive rights. Okay. Now, I'm going down the article a little further. And then Gorsuch said, if there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, was he high when he wrote this? It is that the government may not interfere with an uninhibited marketplace of ideas, so on and so forth. Okay, yes, she can do that, have at it. But people can actually go to her social media pages and her web pages and let people know that she's homophobic, and whatever else, what other phobias and bigotry and hatred she has. So, you know, that the people can use their free speech to tell other people that you're not shit. So there's that. Yeah, I'm going to get off the Supreme Court stuff. I'm making myself irritated. Okay. So, the other thing that I wanted to relate, right, to the affirmative action / education vein of the discussion, Ron DeSantis, he should just give up now. I'll tell you why. Oh, he's such a dipshit. Oh, it's not funny, but it's funny. Okay. So here's the thing, right? He's like, well, if I go harder than Trump, I can replace Trump. It's like, no, because literally no one likes you. No one likes him. It's so sad. Well, not sad for him, just sad in general, right? So this fool said, hold on a second. He wants to eliminate government agencies. And I just want to pull it up again. Okay, yes. So this article's from The Hill because I heard it in the car and I was talking over the coverage. I was like, what? So it says, DeSantis suggests he would eliminate several federal agencies, including the IRS. So he said he wants to get rid of Department of Education, number 1, surprise, surprise, Department of Commerce, Department of Energy, and the IRS. Yo, really? So it's like, okay, so I'm running for president to just burn this shit down. That's what he's telling you. And then BT dubs, if you have any care about like national security, I believe all of our nuclear weapons are handled by the Department of Energy. How do you get rid of that? So I'm relating his desire to rid us of the Department of Education to the affirmative action decision and to the student loan issues, because they really don't want us to learn anything. And I'm not using an amorphous they. I'll be very specific here. I believe our ruling class, right, our political class, and our corporate donor class, right, just borrowing some language here that I've heard from other pundits. Oh, I'm not a pundit, from pundits. I think our ignorance is beneficial for them. And so, Betsy DeVos is someone who has an open contempt for education, yet she was, the secretary of the Department of Education. And then now Ron DeSantis, with a straight face, says he would get rid of the Department of Education. Conservatives also send their children to public school. So the kids can hopefully get educated, but also so they can go to work. Where are their children going to go with no public schools? Like, has he thought any of this through at all? These people that are running for president now, this shit is it's totally just PR and vanity, because it's just, they're not even proposing things that are, again, fully thought out, fully fleshed out, that make any fundamental sense at a basic level. So let's transition from Ron DeSantis to another Republican presidential candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy. He was on the Breakfast Club. And if you have some time, watch the interview that Teslin Figaro did with him, because he got his ass cooked, right? She only asked him 3 questions, I think. And he just spent like 20 some odd minutes avoiding answering the questions. She just wanted to know, like, well, what service experience do you have without money being involved? Meaning not service that somebody paid you to do. What have you given of yourself to your local community, to the American community, to any like ideas and stuff that you believe in? And his answer was basically nothing, right? And it's just like, but you're running for president. I remember when I was a teenager and I was learning a little bit about politics, right? They said, well, historically, I remember hearing on the news, like, okay, so you needed to, obviously be over the age of 35. You needed some sort of military service, and you needed experience as a governor, right? I think there were 1 or 2 other things. But there was, a list, right, that people, practiced in politics would say, oh, well, if you're missing any of those, that you can't be president. And so here's the thing, because we've become more open-minded now, right? We've had, former senators as presidents. We've had people without military service and things like that. It's broadened the playing field, but then you've got clowns like this who are just like anybody. Like, I could just get up tomorrow and be like, yeah, I'm running for president. That's just such a not good idea and a waste of our society's time, right? Like, what would qualify me for that job? Other than I was born on American soil, and I can flap my gums and talk about shit. Like, those aren't qualifications. And it's just, just to bring Trump into it for a second, this whole situation with the classified, top secret, so on and so forth documents, Like, this person, whoever occupies that role, it is a sacred duty, and I think we've lost track of that. I don't know if we ever really had track of that, but it's a sacred duty. And Vivek Ramaswamy is an unserious person and an unserious candidate. And I'll go to the other side as well. I love Professor West as a professor, as an individual. I've met him a couple of times when I've had an opportunity to hear him speak. But he is also an unserious candidate. Like, look at what the Supreme Court is doing. Look at what's happening to people economically. Look at what's happening in the quote unquote post-COVID era in terms of societal breakdowns. This is not a game for you to sell books or whatever it is that you think you're selling, for you to move up in the Republican or Democratic Party. Like, if you're not a serious candidate, can we just, I don't know, can we have like a Squid Game or something to get rid of some of these people? They don't have to die at the end. They just have to say, oh, okay, well, I lost the Squid Game. I guess I'm not running for president. Something, because these folks are not serious. They're just not. Like DeSantis, hey, I want to run for the government, to lead the government and then get rid of 25 to 40% of the government agencies. Get out of here. Get the F out of here. You are a clown, sir. A whole clown. Okay. Alrighty. So I will get off the politics here. So I mentioned Teslin Figaro. Hold up in a second. Let me pull up her Twitter. I just closed it. I really love her work as a pundit because she's just super to the point and she's very real with the people that she interviews. So hold on a second. So this is her Twitter page. And she's posted, I think, a link to the interview. Oh, this is a recap. Okay, so I'm going to try to see if she posted the recap on her YouTube in terms of her perspective on the interview, because I would love it if she interviewed all of the primary candidates on both sides. I mean, she's just very direct. And she doesn't let politicians deflect either, which I appreciate. Now, this is one of my favorite people on Twitter, which at this point, is pretty trashy. But I'm still on here. I'm a writer. I don't really know how to find out about a ton of writing stuff. Without Twitter. There have been so many contests and things that I've applied for, or pitches that I've sent because I've, just quickly seen it on Twitter. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do around that. But anyway, Bree Newsome Bass, she was off Twitter for a while. She's an artist and an activist, but I love her tweets because they're just so to the point. Her threads are short and incisive. So let me go to the tweet I was looking at earlier. Sorry. The U.S. government regularly gives billions of liquid dollars to billion-dollar corporations, weapons manufacturers, and oppressive foreign regimes. Student loan debt is not about paying what we owe. Please stay awake. All these moralistic arguments over 100K debts. Meanwhile, the entire system is built around stealing people's labor, wages, natural resources, and time. Yes, every bit of that. So I just, I just find that I agree with most of what she says. And I'm just like liking all her tweets. I'm like, I hope she doesn't think I'm a stalker. I'm not. I just, sometimes something will happen, and I'm not a hot take person. Usually I need to sit on something for at least a few hours or a couple of days before I make a comment, and she'll just say something and I'll just be like, oh yes, exactly. So yeah, I appreciate her in the Twitter sphere because, like I said, that's usually a dumpster fire. All right, so the last topic of the evening, and thank you to those that have been able to join. I appreciate it. This episode went quite a bit longer than I thought it would. Okay, so Jonathan Majors. So the first thing is that my apologies. I misspelled his name when I did my little advertisement for tonight's show. I could have sworn it was spelled Jonathan with a Jonathan, Thon. That's how I originally remember seeing his name, when I first started watching Lovecraft Country. But it's Jonathan, like, the traditional spelling. So my apologies. Okay, so here's the thing. So for those that don't know, sorry, I'm scratching my hand. For those that don't know, which I don't think is that many people that don't know, he's, currently going through, a domestic violence, case. And, it was, and I heard so many different versions of the story. So that's why one of the reasons it just felt really bizarre to me when the information came out, because it was like, I heard one version of a story where they started fighting at like a club or something like that. And then they got into a cab and they were fighting in a cab over a phone. And then he grabbed her and smacked her or something like that. And then there was another version where they had a verbal exchange and, he went somewhere and then came back to the apartment later that night and they got into, a physical altercation. So it's just like, why are there so many different versions of the story in terms of where they were and what actually happened? And I mean, not just different in terms of people talking about it, but articles were saying different things. And so I had a friend of mine and we were on the phone and I said, I'm not going to comment on this because domestic violence is extremely serious. But at the same time, it seems like something's off here, like there's information missing. Again, just in terms of how everything was presented. So I was like, listen, I'm not going to say, people are like, oh, she's lying, da-da-da-da, it's a setup, da-da-da, versus, oh, he's the worst person ever, put him in a cell next to R. Kelly, right? Like, I'm not going to go in either direction. Oh, wow, I've been on live long enough for it to shut off. It's shutting off in less than 2 minutes. Okay, so I'll be quick about this. So here's the thing, folks. I'm going to show this to you super quick, right? And my shout outs to Jovi Beauty, because I saw her show on YouTube earlier today. And she was the one who said that this article was on Rolling Stone. So fast forwarding to just what I wanted to say here about the issue is that, so Rolling Stone does this article and they're interviewing like 24 people. And they're like, oh yeah, he's so terrible. He's angry and he beats people up and he's rude and this, that, and whatever. But I'm just kind of like, you realize by, doing this article anonymously, you've actually empowered him, right? So I don't know if everything in this article is true. But if it is, folks, like none of their hands are clean. None of their hands are clean, right? I've never personally encountered someone and like known, okay, so this person, they beat up their wife or they're, beating their kids or like, I don't, I'm not saying that there are people in my life who don't fit that. I'm saying I just didn't know about it. But if I didn't know about it, I certainly wouldn't just be like, oh, okay, well, I'm staying out of it until Rolling Stone comes to me 10 years later and, oh, yeah, this person is terrible. Like, if you really feel somebody is a bad person, stop empowering them. And that's all I'll say about that for the time being, because I'm going to shut off. Oh, no.